The moment you defend yourself, you've already lost. Because defense doesn't prove strength, it exposes insecurity. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power doesn't answer accusations. Power makes accusations irrelevant. So the question is, how do you flip power instantly, without saying a word? Welcome to the Prince's Doctrine. Most men don't realize this, but the instinct to defend yourself is not courage. It is panic, wearing the mask of logic. The moment someone questions you, your intentions, your actions, your character, something ancient wakes up inside your nervous system. Your heart tightens, your mind races. Words rush forward before you've even chosen them. You explain, you justify, you clarify. And in that moment, you kneel, not physically, psychologically, because defense is submission. Long before laws existed, before courts, before morality was weaponized as fairness, power operated on one brutal principle. The one who explains is beneath the one who judges. This is not opinion. It is hierarchy psychology. In every human system, tribes, empires, corporations, families, the higher you are, the less you speak to defend yourself. The lower you are, the more you are required to explain. Children explain to parents. Employees explain to managers. The accused explains to the authority. And when you defend yourself, you silently declare, "You have the right to question me." That is the mistake, because power is not proven. Power is assumed. History doesn't remember the men who argued their innocence. It remembers the men who acted as if judgment itself was beneath them. Take Napoleon Bonaparte. When accused by rivals of overreaching ambition, of betrayal, of tyranny, he did not hold public explanations. He did not justify his vision to critics. He advanced. Silence, movement, results. And every accusation dissolved under the weight of inevitability. Contrast that with those who defended themselves endlessly in revolutionary France. Politicians who explained, clarified, pleaded. They lost their heads, literally, because explanation signals uncertainty, and uncertainty invites attack. This is where most men fail. They believe defending themselves clears their name, but socially, psychologically, defense stains more than silence ever could. Why? Because accusations are not about truth. They are about frame control. The moment someone accuses you, they are not asking a question. They are placing you inside a courtroom, with them as judge, jury, and executioner. And when you defend yourself, you accept the courtroom. You accept their authority. You accept their frame. You accept their rules. That's why manipulators provoke explanations. They don't want answers. They want leverage. Machiavelli warned about this exact dynamic. He understood that the most dangerous enemies are not those who attack openly, but those who bait you into reacting. Because reaction exposes you. Reaction reveals fear. Reaction hands over control. Look at King Louis XVI of France. A well-intentioned man, a moral man, a catastrophically weak man. When challenged, he explained. When criticized, he justified. When accused, he defended his goodness. And the more he spoke, the more authority he lost. By the time he realized silence was power, it was too late. Contrast him with Queen Elizabeth I, accused of illegitimacy, accused of immorality, accused of manipulation and heresy. She did not defend herself publicly. She let rumors rot unanswered. Her silence created mystery. Her mystery created fear, and fear created obedience. People filled the silence with their own assumptions, most of them favorable, some terrifying. That is power, because silence forces others to project, and projection is dangerous. When you say nothing, insecure people expose themselves. They over-explain. They escalate. They reveal desperation. This is why social predators love when you defend yourself. Narcissists, toxic bosses, jealous rivals. They provoke you not to be corrected, but to watch you fold. Because every sentence you speak becomes data. Every justification becomes a weakness map. And the more you explain, the more they learn how to control you. That's why Machiavellian figures remain unreadable, unpredictable, unresponsive. They understand something modern men are never taught. Authority lives in what you withhold, not what you reveal. When you rush to defend yourself, you are saying, "I need you to believe me." But powerful men do not need belief. They expect compliance. This is where the illusion of fairness traps you. Society trains you to believe that explaining yourself is virtuous, that transparency equals honesty, that silence equals guilt. That is conditioning, not truth. Because in the real world, guilt explains, innocence observes. A calm man does not rush. A confident man does not clarify. A powerful man does not compete in verbal trials. He lets others talk themselves into weakness. This is why the highest status individuals speak last, or not at all. Judges do not argue. Kings do not debate. Executives do not justify every decision. They allow others to orbit their silence. And here is the paradox most men cannot handle. The less you defend yourself, the more people assume you don't need to. Your calm becomes intimidating. Your restraint becomes dominance. People start questioning themselves instead of you. Did I misjudge him? Am I overreacting? Why isn't he affected? And suddenly, without effort, the power has flipped. This is not passivity. This is controlled aggression. Silence is not weakness. It is delayed force, but only if you can withstand the pressure. Because silence triggers discomfort, and weak men break under discomfort. They speak to relieve tension. They explain to escape anxiety. They defend to soothe fear. Strong men let the tension grow. They understand that whoever cracks first loses. And that is the foundation. Before strategy, before manipulation, before dominance, you must kill the reflex to defend. Because the moment you stop explaining, you stop bleeding power. And once you understand that defense equals weakness, the next realization becomes dangerous. If silence is power, then silence can be weaponized. And that is where Machiavelli truly begins. Silence is misunderstood. Weak men think silence is retreat. Average men think silence is politeness. But power understands silence as pressure. Machiavelli did not teach silence as morality. He taught it as calculated absence. Because absence forces the mind to work, and the human mind, when left alone, becomes its own worst enemy. When you stop defending yourself, something strange happens. People don't relax. They become uneasy, because silence creates a vacuum, and humans are addicted to filling vacuums. Words rush in, assumptions form, fear grows. This is the first secret of psychological warfare. Silence forces your opponent to fight themselves. When you say nothing, you deny them feedback. And without feedback, they lose calibration. They don't know if they've won. They don't know if you're offended. They don't know if you're planning something worse. Uncertainty is torture. This is why interrogators use silence. This is why experienced negotiators pause. This is why high-status individuals delay responses, not because they are confused, but because they are in control of time. Time is power. The man who rushes to speak is chasing relief. The man who waits is creating dominance. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He observed that rulers who explained decisions weakened their authority, while rulers who acted without commentary appeared inevitable. Inevitability is terrifying. Look at Otto von Bismarck, the architect of modern Germany. He was accused constantly of manipulation, aggression, deceit. Did he hold press conferences to clarify his intentions? No. He allowed Europe to speculate while he moved pieces silently behind closed doors. His silence wasn't empty. It was active concealment. And by the time others realized what he was doing, the structure of power had already changed. That is the danger of silence. It hides motion. When you defend yourself, your intentions are exposed. When you stay silent, your intentions are invisible, and what cannot be seen cannot be countered. This is why silence reverses accusations. When someone accuses you and you say nothing, the social dynamic shifts instantly. At first, they feel confident. They expect resistance. They expect explanation. But when it doesn't come, they feel exposed. Why? Because accusations are performances. They require an audience response. Without reaction, the accuser stands alone, awkward, aggressive, unstable. The room changes. People begin to ask, why is he so calm? Why isn't he defending himself? Does he even see this as a threat? And now the spotlight is no longer on you. It's on them. This is projection. The accuser begins to over-explain. They escalate. They add details that weren't necessary. And every added word makes them look guiltier, not you. This is how silence turns the hunter into prey. Machiavellian silence is not passive. It is provocative restraint. You are not avoiding conflict. You are refusing to fight on their terms. And that is where frame dominance is born. The highest form of power is not winning arguments. It is refusing the argument altogether. Because arguments imply equality. Debate exists between peers. Justification exists below authority. This is why kings issued decrees, not explanations. This is why judges deliver verdicts, not discussions. This is why powerful men speak in conclusions, not conversations. They do not say, because. They say, it is. Silence reinforces this frame. It says, I am not required to prove myself to you. And psychologically, this statement, spoken without words, is devastating, because most people live under the illusion that everything must be explained. Silence violates that expectation, and violation of expectation creates dominance. Consider Queen Victoria. During political crises, public attacks, and personal scandals, she often responded with nothing. No rebuttals, no defenses, and yet her authority grew. Why? Because silence elevated her above the chaos. The louder others became, the calmer she appeared. The calmer she appeared, the more permanent her power felt. Silence creates hierarchy. Noise exists at the bottom. Stillness exists at the top. But here is the part few men understand. Silence only works when it is internally grounded. If you are silent but emotionally reactive, people feel it. If you are silent but desperate, it leaks through your body language. True Machiavellian silence comes from inner authority, from the assumption, not the hope, that you are untouchable. This is why silence terrifies manipulators. They rely on emotional feedback. They feed on reactions. When you deny them that, they feel powerless. Ignored people do not feel neutral. They feel erased. And erasure is the deepest insult to the ego. This is why silence hurts more than insults ever could. An insult invites engagement. Silence delivers judgment. It says, you are not worth my energy. And energy is status. Where you invest attention reveals what you value. When you withdraw attention without explanation, you devalue the other person completely. This is why silence ends conversations, ends power plays, ends manipulation. But it must be controlled. Silence is not sulking. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not fear. Silence is measured presence without explanation. You remain calm. You remain composed. You remain observant. And you let others collapse under their own weight. Because humans cannot tolerate ambiguity for long. They will either apologize, over-explain, attack harder, and every option exposes them further. This is Machiavelli's hidden weapon. Not words, not arguments, not moral superiority, but psychological pressure through restraint. And now the final question emerges. What kind of man can live this way permanently? Who can walk through accusations untouched? Who can remain unmoved by judgment? Not a reactive man, not a validation-seeking man, only a man who has severed his dependence on approval. And that is where true dominance begins. In the next chapter, we move beyond tactics. We forge the unjudgeable man, the man who never defends, never explains, never chases. Because when your inner authority is absolute, no accusation can reach you, and no silence will ever feel uncomfortable again. There comes a moment when a man realizes something unsettling. It is not the world that judges him. It is his dependence on judgment that keeps him weak. Most men live as defendants. Every conversation feels like a trial. Every disagreement feels like an accusation. Every silence from others feels like rejection. So they explain, they justify, they negotiate their worth, and in doing so, they remain permanently controllable. Power begins the moment this ends. The unjudgeable man is not innocent. He is not perfect. He is not morally clean. He is indifferent to verdicts, because he has moved beyond the need to be understood. This is the final evolution Machiavelli hinted at, but never stated plainly. The man who does not seek approval cannot be ruled. Approval is a leash. Society teaches you to crave it from childhood. Parents, teachers, peers, institutions. You are rewarded for compliance, punished for detachment. So you internalize a false belief. If I am good enough, I will be safe. That belief destroys men. History does not protect the good. It favors the decisive, and decisiveness requires emotional autonomy. Look at Genghis Khan. He was accused of brutality, barbarism, inhumanity. He did not deny it. He did not reframe it. He ignored it, because he did not need moral permission to act. His authority came from certainty, not consensus. This is the pattern across history. The more a man cares about how he is perceived, the more fragile his position becomes. The less he cares, the more solid his presence feels. Because detachment creates psychological weight. People feel it. They sense that you are not negotiating your identity. And when your identity is not negotiable, neither is your authority. This is emotional immunity, not emotional numbness, not suppression, but the ability to feel without reacting, to observe judgment without absorbing it, to hear accusations without answering them, because reaction is permission. When you react emotionally, you tell the world, you have access to me. The unjudgeable man closes that access. He listens, he pauses, he decides internally. And often, he decides to do nothing. Nothing terrifies people more than a man who is unaffected, because unaffected men cannot be controlled by shame, or fear, or approval. This is where social alchemy occurs. Over time, something subtle shifts. People begin explaining themselves to you. They justify their tone, their behavior, their intentions, not because you demanded it, but because your silence implied judgment. This is power reversal. The courtroom disappears, and suddenly, you are the standard. You never announced it. You never claimed it. You simply stopped participating in games that required you to lose. This is the calm tyrant archetype. Not loud, not aggressive, not emotional, but final. He does not threaten. He does not argue. He withdraws attention, and withdrawal, when coming from a man of presence, is punishment. This is what Machiavelli meant by appearing merciful while remaining feared. Fear does not require violence. It requires unpredictability. People fear what they cannot read, when they cannot tell whether you are offended, plotting, or indifferent. They assume the worst. And that assumption polices their behavior better than force ever could. This is why true dominance is quiet. Noise seeks validation. Silence assumes superiority. The unjudgeable man speaks when there is nothing left to add. His words feel heavy because they are rare. When he finally responds, it is not an explanation. It is a conclusion. No justification, no defense, just reality. And this is the final law, not a tactic, not a trick, a personal doctrine. Never defend, never explain, never chase. Defense lowers you. Explanation exposes you. Chasing humiliates you. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be respected. And respect is not requested. It emerges when others realize, this man does not need us. That realization changes everything. Because the man who does not need cannot be threatened. And the man who cannot be threatened cannot be controlled. This is where power becomes permanent. Not because you dominate others, but because you have conquered the reflex to submit. The world will still accuse you, judge you, misinterpret you. Let it. Power does not correct illusions. It outlives them. And once you embody this, you will notice something disturbing. The noise fades, the pressure disappears, and the world begins to move around you instead of against you. That is the silence of authority. That is the weight of presence. That is the prince's doctrine.